Hello and welcome to Adventures in Venueland, an EVMC podcast. Join us for this all-access pass backstage and behind the scenes with some of the brightest minds that cross the scope of the live event industry. I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. We'll introduce you to incredible guests who journey with us as we dive deep into the world of venues, tours, festivals, and everything in between. Grab your laminate and meet us in Venueland.
Today's adventure takes us to the Lone Star State. We're going to talk with a woman who has done marketing in Dallas, San Antonio, from the Stars to the Spurs to Dickies Arena. She's seen a lot in this industry in a short time. Excited to talk with Becca Berger. She's the Senior Sports Marketing Manager for the Fort Worth Sports Commission. Hey, Becca, how's it going?
Hey, good. Thank you for having me.
So tell us about your current role there, because this is something a little different than a lot of your history and different from a lot of our listeners and kind of what they do currently. So talk to us about what you're doing these days.
Yeah. So I am the Senior Sports Marketing Manager of the Fort Worth Sports Commission, just like you said. I run really your every single day social media, website, PR, press releases for the city of Fort Worth. So think of any sporting event that comes to the city, I am doing marketing for. So I am working with national governing bodies and the venues that are in Fort Worth. And I am kind of that middleman between the two and making sure that anything that anyone needs hospitality-wise, hosting, making sure events are successful from the time of planning marketing through the execution of the actual event itself.
That's going to be really interesting too, because I'm sure you see a wide variety of events. I mean, like anyone would, I guess, on the venue side, but I feel like sports commissions have so many different events that come through to cities that, you know, whether it's hosting a gymnastics championship or something from NCAA to, you know, something for baseball or whatever it is, there's so much variety there. Is that something that you kind of enjoy the shakeup on that side?
Yeah, I think I've always loved that part of the events, and I've kind of always been in that niche market. So I'll kind of go into, you know, you said, you know, the Spurs and the Stars, and I've kind of always been on somewhat of an island, I would say, at these sports teams. So whether that's venue marketing for sports teams or, you know, different events throughout the sports commission. So I really love being able to do something different every single day. I think it keeps things interesting. I've had a ton of different event experience just in the year and a half that I've been at the sports commission, you know, anything from NCAA women's gymnastics championships to women's tennis association world finals. We are hosting MLB All-Star Week next year. So helping plan for that. So it really just, I mean, there's your kind of monthly events, and then there's those bigger events, and it's definitely different planning for the future. I think that's been really cool. You know, you have your team side marketing where you kind of get in the groove every single day and you're used to that. And I think this has been a really good shift because it's something that, okay, it's coming in 2024 or 2026. Right. And you're like, okay, how do I plan for something that is so far ahead? Like, you kind of get in that mindset, but everything really comes quicker than you would think in this world. And there's just so much planning that comes with, you know, working with national governing bodies, and so much that, you know, comes with working with the venue itself and making sure that you know, you have a solid ticket sales plan and your marketing plan, you know, everything from budgeting a year in advance and making sure that if you, you know, want to hire influencers to help with your marketing plan, that, you know, you're planning everything in time.
Becca, you know, you talk about, you know, working on this stuff, and obviously you're working with the venues when you're doing that. You've got the venues experience and the team's experience. So talk to me about, you know, how you kind of used that in your current position.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of give just a background for the listeners. So went to University of Kansas, worked at KU Athletics, so kind of got that college athletics experience. After graduating from the University of Kansas, I went and worked for the Spurs. And I was on the team side, and shout out Lori Shapiro here. She was
you're not the first.
previous guest, Lori Shapiro.
So she was actually on the venue side when I was on the sports side, and I had no idea that there was that whole other world. And obviously she was coming to this conference and, you know, doing that whole other side. And so that was a side that I was like, okay, I haven't heard of it, but it is really cool. She's able to kind of, you know, use these live event experiences and tie the marketing back to the team side and, you know, create these really cool experiences for fans that you wouldn't typically see. And it was honestly, at the time, this was 2014. So it was really new and it was emerging, and there was just so much you could do with it. And so I kind of saw her grow in that. And, you know, after 2015, so I had an internship with the Spurs that got turned into a full-time role. And in 2015, I got a job in Dallas, actually at the marketing arm. And I was there for about 9 months. And then I got a job with the Dallas Stars. So I know it sounds like I went from team, but there was an agency in there too. So I think it's important to know like all facets of, you know, my career that have kind of helped shape me into the experience that I have into, you know, this success of being able to know every single person who's involved in the marketing process and being able to really assess what is best per event. So I think that's really helpful. I mean, obviously, I think one of the biggest challenges that I've faced in the DFW area is competition of events. So obviously it's like when I was working at the Stars, we had our competition was the Cowboys, the Rangers, the Mavs, and how are you going to set yourself aside of there's so much going on in your area. So how are you going to compete and sell your destination and your experience over those? Because I think you have to learn to really be unique with what people want and figure out, you know, what the audience will kind of settle into.
I love that you mentioned kind of the benefits of touching all those areas and even the agency side, which I think is a really important side, because I think that's something we've heard from a lot of guests on when it comes to kind of having that well-rounded understanding of the whole process. And that although you may feel like your role is very important, and it is in whatever side of the industry you're on, there's so many other cogs in that wheel. And so if you kind of skip certain ones, or you don't empathize with the struggles that other, you know, whether it's the venue side or the agency side or all these different groups are having, you can kind of miss, I don't know, key challenges maybe that a lot of people have. And so I think having a better understanding kind of that whole process really sets you up for success, because then you're knowing, okay, like in your current position, you know, I'm at the sports commission, but I'm working with these venues. I've been on the venue side. I know where they're coming from and I know their motivation. And then, you know, here's the sports team and I know where they're coming from. And then, you know, and everyone's kind of looking at it from a different angle, but they all want at the end of the day to have a successful event. It's just, how do you get all those relationships to work well together? So I'm sure that sets you up for success, or at least gives you a different perspective that a lot of other people don't have, and that you've kind of seen all those sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's cool about this role is it kind of brings everyone together. You know, it really focuses on that hospitality and making sure that the event goes smoothly from that planning process to the execution. And I say that obviously there's so much marketing in between and there's so much planning that goes into it, but so much of live events are the actual experience itself, and making sure that, you know, when an organization and an event comes to your city, making sure that they want to come back, and, you know, just really focusing on those relationships. And I think obviously, you know, having the sports knowledge that I have and that experience, and then obviously the venue side of things. So knowing how much, you know, time and energy goes into these events on the venue side itself, and being empathetic towards that. I think it's really helpful to kind of, you know, loop everything in. You kind of tie a nice bow of like, welcome to our city. Here's everything that we're going to do. We're going to make your event super successful. And here's why you're going to want to come back and work with us in the future. And it just goes to show that, like, with marketing, I mean, obviously you're telling a story, and my biggest goal is to tell the Fort Worth story and, why we are so hospitable and why we are, that destination that will make you feel like you want to come back. And it's just that home feeling.
Becca, you mentioned, the Fort Worth story. So for the people that, aren't from Texas, right? We might know Dallas, we might know Austin, or we know Houston. And so obviously it's a big, big state, a lot of big cities. Tell us about Fort Worth.
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, it's such a pleasure to work in Fort Worth and have this experience. I think it's so unique, and the city itself. So, I'm from Kansas, and it kind of does give me just that smaller town feel of just the people, but it's a huge city, And so
Right.
you're getting that vibe of people being kind and just this rich culture and history. And I think people obviously underestimate, like, there's just so much to do and so much to see and so much to learn in the city, whether that's, dining, and I mean, drinking is a huge part too, but seeing the city for everything that it is from an educational standpoint, I think, like, there's just so much diversity and just really cool opportunities that you wouldn't expect. And Fort Worth really just has it all. So obviously it's like, to kind of explain a little bit further of my organization. So
Yeah, please.
The Fort Worth Sports Commission is an umbrella under Visit Fort Worth. So there are kind of different categories that Visit Fort Worth oversees. And so one of them is the Fort Worth Herd, which is a twice daily cattle drive. And honestly, I think that is my favorite experience that Fort Worth has to offer. I would go twice a day.
What does that mean? Tell me what that means.
Okay, what is a cattle drive?
So it is this awesome experience in the stockyards, and twice daily, the cattle literally comes down the road. They block it off. Hundreds of thousands of visitors come and see, I mean, literally just live animals on the street. Like, welcome to Texas. And it's everyone's favorite thing.
I'm going to say that sounds very appropriately Texas.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun because it's like, you kind of get to put your boots on and your hat, and it's such a cool experience down in the stockyards. I think that is my favorite place, just to like walk up and down the street and just see everything it has to offer. There's tons of history in the city, and you kind of get to learn throughout the stockyards of, going from place to place historically, and really learn the diversity and the culture of the city of Fort Worth. So, we help promote that, Visit Fort Worth with the Herd. And then there is Here Fort Worth, which is local music. And they do a really good job of connecting local artists all over the city, and, helping them get their name out. And, we've partnered with Here Fort Worth for some of our events to just have like any local music come in, play for an influencer marketing event, or, just really play into that emotion of sales tactics. So I think that's been really cool for us. And then, obviously we have the Film Commission and the Sports Commission and the Sales and Services team. So it's a lot. I mean, obviously
there's busy.
Yeah, there's lots going on. It's a great group of people. And I think what's unique is that when I was in the live event industry and, working team side and everything, I mean, I didn't even know that this was an available career option. So I think that's been really cool to know. I think I always thought that, not that I was going to be stuck team side, because I feel like I learned so much with every single sports team, but you kind of get to the point where you're like, should I leave the sports industry? Should I, like, everyone kind of gets to that point. I mean, I've been in the industry for 10 years now, and you hit that mark where you're like, what more is there? Like, can I be doing something more than just this? And I think it's hard when we're right out of college and getting these amazing jobs. It's so cool, but it gets to the point where it's like, okay, is there like you get to the top of all of your wants and your to-dos, and it's like, okay, so what's next? And so I think this is a really cool way of bringing everything that I've really ever worked on to life. And so I'm really lucky to be able to do it with the Fort Worth Sports Commission.
With Dallas being, it's the Dallas Fort Worth area, right? That's how people outside of Texas hear it. Tell me about, establishing your own identity and kind of what your relationship is like with I'm sure Dallas has their own sports commission.
Totally. I mean, I think that is probably something that everyone is working on, is figuring out their competition and, nailing down what really speaks to them and figuring out who they are. So I think we've done a really good job of tapping into, all the resources that we have, but also just like being who we are and embracing that. I think a lot of people get caught up in competition and they try to do these things that like, oh, this will make me stand out. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, we just want to show and sell the destination as opposed to events themselves, because we're selling the experience. We're not selling the individual events. And I think that has really helped us, I would say, in kind of establishing our niche and really going from there of, having that competition. I mean, obviously, it's hard because we do work with the Dallas Sports Commission on events. And so I wouldn't like, it's hard to say that they're competition because, we're partnering on, the FIFA World Cup with them. And, we get to work on events that are hosted at like AT&T Stadium. And, with MLB All-Star Week, we're working with the Arlington Sports Commission. And so I think it just embracing that it's okay to have competition, but also I think for so long people thought that you could only go to Dallas or you could only go to Fort Worth. And it's like, no, they're two separate cities and you should be making stops in both, because there's just such different stories to tell and such different experiences with both to be had. And I think both are unique. And I think that's what's really exciting for us.
It seems definitely like probably, I don't know if you would agree with this, but like the closest comparison being like the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, where there's not a lot of places in the States where you do have two large cities in such close proximity to each other. But I think to your point, and we heard the same thing from friends of ours up in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, and that you really have such unique personalities with both cities. And there's so many great things with both cities that you're kind of doing yourself a disservice if you only visit one or you only think of one whenever you're thinking of it as a destination. And it really, like, they each kind of have their own personality and their own thing that they can showcase. But it is, I'm sure, kind of a fun challenge and struggle, but also a fun thing. And that you do have this large city sports commission that you're collaborating with sometimes and competing with sometimes. And, it sounds like a fun challenge. One question I have is, are you involved in any of those conversations when they are like, we're going to go after bidding on something? Like, I know you went to the All-Star game, right? Because I'm sure you all knew you were having it, so you're going to check it out. Like, do you kind of, get involved in any of those conversations or go scout, when you're going to have a gymnastics championship? Are you going to the year, the city it's in the year before and kind of scoping it out? And what's that process been like?
Yeah. So I think that's the most fun part about this is like, there's so many different sectors in, going out and bidding on events, and then the actual event operations and planning to come to a city, and then the marketing of it. So I'm really not involved in the bidding, which I appreciate because I like to leave it to the professionals. We have a really great team who does that. And so yes, I will go and scout for an event that, for example, MLB All-Star Week. So really, I'm not going to touch too much on it. I'm going to let, Texas have its surprises for what we'll host and all of that. But I think the cool part is that, obviously I wanted to go and see it and be able to, help with all the experience side. So like we're talking any sponsor parties, any ancillary events around the actual event that would help us garner any PR, marketing, media, anything local that we can really blow up and just take it to the next level. And I think that part of my job I really love, because I don't necessarily have the sales experience. I have the marketing experience, but I'm not going out and finding like USA Karate, USA Taekwondo,
Right.
random, like I don't have those connections. But fortunately, obviously with every industry, there's all these conferences that you go to and you meet all these national governing bodies and, you put together these pitches and the bids. And so I am helping with bid books from a marketing standpoint of, hey, here's, all of the analytics I make all the post-event reports. So that's part of my job of, okay, let's take an event and let's see how it did. So, obviously I partner with any media monitoring analytics and I get those, whether it's, how hashtags performed for us and any social media data. And I kind of compile it into a one-pager for a client. And then I'm able to kind of compile all of those and say, okay, here's the stats that are important for us. And this is something that we can use in a bid book and show, why Fort Worth. So I think that part of it is really cool, and just knowing the whole event process. But I would say I am the last to kind of get involved in an event. So it kind of starts with our executive director and the director of booking. So she's kind of, the new business, and our executive director, who's my boss, they work together in scoping those out and, getting Fort Worth in the conversations. And then once an event gets booked, it goes to our operations department and they figure out, all the coordination with transportation and the venue. And,
Yeah.
they go from there with the hotels and how many room nights. And so kind of just spirals from there. And then they introduce me to their marketing contact. And, then I set up an initial call and I figure out, who's your target market? When do you want to go on sale? What's your goal? I think, with a lot of these events, especially the smaller ones, I'm always available for help. I'm the only one who does marketing for the Sports Commission. And I think that part is really unique because I'm able to kind of tell this story of, it's not only driving ticket sales, it's also, what is your organization story? How can we help? Is there a community relations aspect to this? Can I tie in any local partners, any local universities? A lot of times we work really closely with our city council and the mayor. And if there's any proclamations that I can help write that, we make an official day in Texas, in Fort Worth, for that special event, and just making sure that we go above and beyond in figuring out what their purpose is for having that event.
It's a lot to take care of, but you've mentioned, people on your team that you work with. So let's drill down a little bit, because we kind of got the overview, but tell us about your team that you've got there working with it, and what's a day like for you? Are you working from home? Are you working from the office? That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So there is 6 of us on the team right now. So I am in charge of marketing. There's 2 operations. One is an operations director, and then one is an operations coordinator. We've got 2 people in business development. One is the director, one is a manager, I believe. And then our executive director who runs the Sports Commission. So very lucky. I love just a cohesive team. I've been very grateful to, our team is so diverse just in what we've experienced. One of the girls, has experience in minor league baseball. And I've always said that people who have worked in minor league baseball deserve the most respect.
They've been through the ringer. Yeah,
they know how to
sell.
sell tickets.
Yeah.
They know how to work with people on any scale, any level. And they're so driven. And I think that is so important And then, the director of operations, he has years and years of experience at other sports commissions. And so I think that's really important for us because, I don't have that experience in sports commissions. I have it in sports themselves. And then there's people on the team who don't have any sports experience. And that's really pertinent for us because we need that hotel experience and that customer service experience. And we're just a really good balance of, honestly, we're all transplants, which is really funny. None of us are actually from Fort Worth, which I find kind of entertaining just because we're all promoting Visit Fort Worth and the city of Fort Worth. But it kind of shows that like everybody can love this city and everybody is welcome. And here it is, like, here's what we offer. And so I think that part has been really fun and welcoming. I've been places and worked for teams my whole life that I'm like, yeah, I'm just from Kansas. And they're like, oh, you're the first person from Kansas I've ever met. Like, what do you even do there? And so I think that part is fun. And obviously, like, I do love living in Texas. And so I've kind of just embraced it. And then for what my days look like, I know people say it in this industry, but they're all different.
Yeah, true.
So we are in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's kind of been since January. We were going in once a week. Pretty much COVID, we didn't have an office. They built us an office now this year. It's been really cool. They really went all out with building this office space for us. So that's been really nice to have that space. And then we kind of started hiring like within Visit Fort Worth a lot. And so there hasn't been as many desks available as there are people. And so now we've kind of done a little bit more flex. So if we want to come in just 3 times a week, we can kind of pick it. I think I've gotten so in the routine of doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that I've still kind of stuck with it. And then it's nice because it's like 4 days off, 3 days on sort of thing. I mean, obviously I'm like, shout out to my boss. I'm still working on Monday and Friday, but
yeah, I get it.
It's nice to have that flexibility and be able to work from home. And, I think it kind of just goes to show that when you have this sort of flexibility, it goes to show you that you are valued and you are trusted. And I think that's a huge,
for sure,
huge selling point for me of, working in sports my whole life and, working game days and working 60 to 80 hour weeks and all of that. And now it's like, I have a work-life balance for the first time in my life.
Congratulations, you did it.
So I think, it's really been so fun for me to grow with this role and just see what's next. So
you talk about that, that obviously being at, University of Kansas. So talk to me, because I know there were a couple stops along the way, but how you got that first job, the Dallas Stars, I want to say, where you kind of ended up in the industry and, spent, a good chunk of years there.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I had a couple internship experiences. I mean, that's my biggest advice to anyone is internships. I mean, obviously they're worth every penny and every ounce of, blood, sweat, and tears that you kind of go through. That is what shaped me, I would say, into, really solidifying, like, I want to do this as a career. So, I had that University of Kansas experience. And it's funny because all of my internships were kind of all different. And now that I actually know the industry, my University of Kansas one was it was a fan experience and marketing. But now looking back on it, it was actually game ops, which
yeah.
I would not think of at the time. So I was like, oh, I'm just doing marketing. I'm doing marketing. But there's so many different, avenues that you can kind of take. And I was on headsets during the game and trying to find fans to do promo contests. And I mean, I was doing basketball signings with Coach Self, and everything was so different. It just depended on, what sport. We got to choose 2 main sports. And so I was basketball and football, and we would work those game days heavily. And then I also helped a lot with women's volleyball, which I got really into. And so it just depended on, what was going on that day and what they needed from us. And then my job with the Spurs was really heavily team side marketing, like your typical team side marketing. And so I think that was the first time seeing that was available, writing PA scripts and working with sponsors and, working with the community relations department and figuring out how to tie in, NBA All-Star and everything to your daily, grind of the season. And so that's when I knew I really wanted to be in sports and kind of solidify that. So when I moved to Dallas, I was, applying here and there to jobs. And, I was still at the marketing arm, but I knew I wanted to be team side. And so I was still kind of putting feelers out there. And I applied to the PR department of the Dallas Stars to work game nights. And I got that role. And so basically I was doing post-game notes, helping with that, but really just like, it was a game day internship that I was really hoping would turn full-time in some capacity, at least just getting my foot in the door. So I did that for a season, and about 6 months later, I interviewed for actually a different role in the organization with the Dallas Stars. So, once you get your foot in the door and you start meeting these people and they're like, okay, well, as soon as something becomes available, like you should interview for it. So I actually interviewed to be the front desk person, and they were like, this person who was hiring me was like, you're too overqualified for that. Hang on a minute. This is like mid-interview. He's like, I'm going to go get someone from the venue side. They've been wanting to do marketing, but they've never had a marketing person before. Just sit here. Interview ended up being like 2.5 hours that he went and got the venue person at the time. Yeah. And I got hired on the spot, and I was the marketing coordinator. And pretty much I wrote my own job description. I leaned on Lori, shout out again. She's getting really lucky with these shout outs. Okay. So really just figuring out, what my day-to-day would be. And that was, it was a 6,000 person venue, and figuring out, I was running social and website and, all of our marketing content, writing press releases, all of that, and really helping get events to book. And so that's really interesting kind of looking back because, obviously I said now that I don't help book, but a lot of my marketing back then was the leading reason that, we were getting events to book with us. So it really has come full circle for me. And then, I was there for like 4.5 years. And I grew into, marketing coordinator, got promoted to marketing manager, went through, pretty much like everyone else during COVID, some furloughs. So most of our organization was furloughed for about 9 months and then brought back. And so really I was in it probably 3.5 years before COVID, I would say. And I was marketing manager by that point. And then everything happened and I had no clue what was going to evolve and how, if I was even going to be brought back. And I remember reaching out to you, Paul, what am I supposed to do? Do I get another job? Do I just wait around?
I was in that mud with you. That was a crazy time. What is life right now?
What is life? And so I was like, you know what? This is the time to just, if I have a passion project, just find it, figure it out. And so I went home unfortunately, sad circumstances, unrelated to COVID, but my grandma had found out that she had cancer, and it was the same week of the COVID shutdown. And so I didn't realize that we were going to be shut down for, however many months. Obviously, I don't think anyone knew that at the time. But I grabbed a week's worth of clothes and drove up to Kansas. And, our president of the Dallas Stars at the time was like, all right, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, sure. So I went up there and I was there for 2.5 months living with my parents and honestly living the best life that I honestly could ever live.
Yeah. Did you get another set of clothes?
Yeah, I did have to drive. I did have to drive back down to Dallas when it hit the end of May because it hit summer. And so I was like, I have winter sweaters from March. So we're going to have to take a drive and come back. So, but yeah, so I actually, I ended up starting a food blog, a little food Instagram and website.
I'm a fan. I am a fan. Blog. Yeah. Put the shout out, give it the plug.
The Confident Kitchen.
The Confident Kitchen. So honestly, it really started because all of my friends in Dallas, I would host and I would invite people over and I would cook for, 10, 12 girls, and we would have like a bachelor night or whatever we were watching at the time. And it was so fun. And my friends would be like, okay, I need that recipe for this. Like, even if you just start a page for us, like that we can all follow, and there's just like 5 followers, like, can you just do it for us, please? And I was like, sure, I have literally nothing better to do, so why not, And so it kind of just took off from there. It started out as like a couple hundred followers and just friends, and I would just promote it on my own personal social media. And it's funny because it's like I kind of used all of my marketing strategies that I've, used with all of my jobs and experiences, but for myself. And so it was very weird being in that like kind of like a rebrand of yourself and
self-promotion business. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's been really cool just to see how social media has evolved. It's really helped me in my job itself. And I think I never I don't know, this whole like influencer business it's very overwhelming to me. I have to take breaks from it a lot. It's social media, it just overwhelms me. And I wish I was more consistent with it. I'll go, a few months out of the year that I'm really consistent with it. And these are kind of the months that I am. And then during like heavy event season, I just kind of let it sit because I'm just involved in my work and all of that. But I will say it's been so nice to be able to learn social media through trial and error of my own kind of success and fails and all of that, and see what content works and be like, no, I actually know that this works and I know that this doesn't work, and be able to use that on a day-to-day basis. So I think in some ways it's like all of my experiences have really come full circle for me. And I think it's just important to remember that like any door that opens, like what's meant for you won't pass you. And I know it's kind of like, oh, that sounds very like motivational and whatever, but I think it's really true. I think there's so many different opportunities that we don't see on a day-to-day basis that, are available for us as marketers. Like we have so much experience that's so vital for companies that are small businesses or are huge businesses. It doesn't matter if it's a small business, it's like our skills are so, they're translatable to so many different things. And I think that's really cool about what we do, is that we can kind of just take it from one avenue to another and it's still successful.
Yeah. Well, give us a plug about your cooking. Like, so it's dairy free, right? It's
free,
mostly gluten free. Is that something you decided yourself, or is it something you just wanted? I think it's really cool that you've sort of found your niche for these healthier dishes, and then produced all these photos and videos. And I'm sure that's been interesting too, doing like food photography and things when you probably before doing it you're like, how do I get the best shot of these noodles, or like
Yeah. So I'm lactose intolerant, and I have been probably since high school. I would dabble in having cheese and I'd be like, okay, but just like not feel great. And it got to like 2 or 3 years ago and I just couldn't handle dairy, like could not handle it. I'm actually really allergic to milk now. So if it's in a Starbucks drink, and they make it wrong, I'll literally just throw up. Like I'm allergic to it at this point. So I don't make or cook anything. I don't eat anything with dairy. Gluten-free is more like I just feel better when I don't eat a lot of gluten, but I still will have bread and pasta. And there's so many different options now of, different types of, like you said, pasta that, gluten-free. There's, chickpea pasta, and brown rice and whatever, all the gluten-free types. And I think it's just really important to listen to your body, obviously. Mine was telling me that we're getting old and we're 31 now and we can't eat the way that we used to. And so I don't know. It's just, I never really saw a lot of dairy-free, recipes growing up. And I think it was always really hard to achieve because it's like, I wanted to do what was right for my body and listen to my body, but I didn't have a lot of other influence. And it really took so much of like realizing how much better I feel when I'm eating that 80-20 of easy, healthy, adding into my diet as opposed to like taking things away. I'm all about just having full plates of whether it's vegetables and your starch and I'm not a nutritionist by any means, but I do feel like if you listen to your body and what it's asking for, like in your cravings, that's what you're missing. And so just adding those extra nutrients to meals and doing it in a way that's not overwhelming. I try to make my recipes fairly easy. It's funny because a lot of my friends are like, that seemed so complicated. I'm like, it was a 20-minute thing. And they're like, I just can't get myself to do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to write it out in recipes and you're going to do it because you're like, I have faith in you.
All right, Becca. So obviously you're big on the social media scene, and both from a work and a professional side. Everybody who's in this business right now has a boss coming into their office saying, how about this Threads thing? What are we doing on Threads? Give me your Insta thoughts on the whole Threads thing right now.
We will replay this for you in 6 months and see how
predict the future for the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting because I feel like I hopped on TikTok very like early, and I'm all about the like new social platforms. But I think for me, with just where I'm at of burnout and there's just so many social media platforms. I never downloaded Be Real, and I feel like that's kind of fizzled out. I think Threads was cool. I was one of the first. I feel like I was in like that first 100,000 to download Threads. I don't know. You can look at my little on Instagram and figure out how many, what number place, but really like the first night it was available or like the first day it went live, I downloaded Threads, but I haven't posted anything. So I just want to see what it's about. I want to learn. I want to study. I want to figure out like what is the niche. And I think so many people hop on, especially when you're in that social media culture and, a boss comes in and is like, oh, I heard about this new platform. And I mean, my boss personally, he's like, yeah, the social media things, like you do those things, the
right.
talk and the this. And I'm like, yeah, I know you don't even have Instagram. And he'll be like, so did you like post this? I'm like, yeah. Did you look on the social media platforms? Like it's up there. But I think it's also good to kind of take a step back and see like what it's going to be used for and then tie it into your business and figure out how you can use it. So I'm kind of in that space right now of it feels very like MySpace to me of like writing your thoughts and whatever. It's funny because it's like, maybe it's just the people that I follow on Twitter, but I follow sports and news and marketing and sports industries heavily on Twitter. And maybe with opening, how it did on Instagram, it's following all of those people where it's not,
it's true.
Tied in. And so I think
it's a different audience because I don't even know if I was quite as aware of how different my audiences were of those two platforms, but you're exactly right. It's like, I look at the Threads list and I'm like, oh, it's all the people that I find, more interesting on like a photo-based platform. And then you have Twitter, which is a little more like maybe news centric. And it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to see how many people are kind of taking an initial stance on Threads when this thing literally came out less than 2 weeks ago. Like you got to give it time to evolve and figure out what it's supposed to be and how
what it is. Yeah, right. Yeah.
What it is and what its purpose is for your business. And I don't know. It's like there are people on Twitter, literally, you can get into the marketing Twitter, like beef in the industry, but there's people who are like claiming that they're a guru in Threads. And I'm like, you can't be a guru if this thing just came out. You can't be like, I have X amount of experience. Like everybody has 2 weeks of experience.
2 weeks of experience. Yes.
Everybody's got it on their resume already. Proficient in Threads.
Proficient in threads. I'm like, things I never thought I'd be talking about is just this. It's so wild. Like the way social media happens, I think that video and photo sharing apps are way more likely to succeed just in our day and age than kind of these more text and news. And it just gets it can get political. It can get
it's so very toxic so quick. Yeah.
Yeah. And just very opinionated and one-sided. And just, I don't know, you kind of get sucked into this whole other world.
You do. Yeah, absolutely.
For our type of industry, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. Like photo and video based things probably in general will probably have more staying power. But also for anything in live events, I mean, that's just the perfect platform. You know, we are this industry about experiences and events and creating this kind of visual, and whether it's, you know, a concert or whether it's, you know, this whole, you know, welcomes and entries at different, you know, things that people will do. So, I mean, I think that is something that is so well designed for live events, having like an Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or any of those that are really focused more on that video and photo, because I think it really leans into what is our best kind of foot forward with live events. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. We'll probably look back on this and be like, we were so naive. Threads was
it lasted 3 weeks,
right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, last 3 weeks, or it could be here in 10 years. You know, who knows?
Becca, we're just about out of time, but before we let you go, I want to hit you with our fast five. It's 5 quick questions, just looking for your instant response. First up, do you remember your very first concert?
Oh, okay. I've been thinking about this for so long. I feel like I'm like not the norm. I cannot remember my first concert.
That's why I asked, can you remember? I had a vibe.
I can't. Like,
how about a favorite? Do you have a favorite concert?
Ooh, okay. Paul McCartney. Good
answer, yeah. All right, you mentioned hosting bachelor watch parties. Golden Bachelor, yes or no?
Yeah, heck yeah. I'm here.
I don't know if I want to see old ladies cry. I don't know if I want to see that.
I just think that there's going to be some wholesome individuals, and you know, I want to work with them. I'm here for it.
You have somebody over to your house. You're going to cook them something. Obviously, you have your food blog. What's your signature go-to meal?
Signature go-to meal. Whoo. Okay. Well, I have my I want to impress someone with like a traditional Hungarian cuisine of like my roots. Ooh. I would do chicken paprikash and nukali, which is
nice.
Basically it is like a paprika chicken that is marinated and cooks, and it's like buttery soft and melts in your mouth with like these homemade, they're basically noodles, but they're like little dumplings. And then
that sounds so good.
If I'm just doing,
I'm visualizing it in my head right now.
Yeah. I'm just hosting. I'm probably going to go schnitzel and probably some sort of noodle dish or rice dish, but schnitzel is always a crowd pleaser. I haven't met anyone that doesn't like fried chicken. So I kind of healthify it and, you know, make some asparagus or crispy Brussels sprouts with it, and just kind of up its game.
There you go. Last question for you. What's your theme song? The reality TV show all about your life. Cameras follow you around. What is the theme song to the Becca Berger show?
Oh my gosh, this is a really good question. I feel like I have to get back to you on this. Like, I feel like I need to like really soak this in and like.
Could be an original.
What's the song that's like, oh God, I don't want to sing on this thing. It's like, this is me. Like, there's a song that's like, this is me. Like, I am who I am. Like, this is it. This is my life. I don't know how, like, I can't.
Is that the song
like,
from the movie?
Like, it's like I feel like it's in like a Disney movie or something. It's like,
yes, it's the one with Hugh Jackman, right?
I don't know. I really like, I don't want to sing it because I don't want to like.
Save us.
Oh, it's the one from Greatest Showman.
Greatest Showman. I like it. I think that's a good anthem.
The song for the movie. It is called. It is called This Is Me.
Okay, perfect.
Well, there you go.
We'll go with that. All right. Here's an easy question for you. Any plugs you want to give? People want to learn more about the Fort Worth Sports Commission or follow you or your food blog.
Yeah. So Fort Worth Sports Commission is going to be at Fort Worth Sports. Visit Fort Worth is going to be at Visit Fort Worth. And then you can find me on theconfidentkitchen.com and at The Confident Kitchen. And then my social media, my personal social media handle is at Becca Berger.
Berger.
Berger. You would know.
I would know, yes. Hey, Becca, thank you so much for making the time today. We really appreciate it. Really, really love to get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
And a big thanks to everybody for listening to this episode of Adventures in Venueland. Remember, you can subscribe and find more episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We do love your 5-star reviews. It helps others find us. Until the next adventure, I'm Dave Rettelberger.
And I'm Paul Hooper. Thanks for listening, everyone. I think I'm going to go to the grocery and get some schnitzel and some Brussels sprouts and prepare something awesome for tonight.
Adventures in Venueland is a side project of the Event and Venue Marketing Conference, a marketing conference that brings together diversified event and venue professionals to cultivate education, collaboration, and innovation for the growing sports and live entertainment industry. Find out more at eventvenuemarketing.com.
Audio editing and mixing by Camille Faulkner.
Design and digital advertising by Megan Ebeck.
Copywriting and publicity by Samantha Marker.
Guest booking and brand strategies by Paul Hooper.
Guest research by Dave Rettelberger.
Marketing strategies by Paul Hooper, Megan Ebeck, and Samantha Marker. Thanks for joining us. Until the next adventure.